So you know the rules. If you don't like being recorded, you have to be quiet or X out. So welcome everybody. I am Jeff Rothstein, a member of the Astro Imaging Special Interest Group, and this is a special meeting of the Astro Imaging Group devoted exclusively to smart telescopes, particularly getting started with them. There seems to be a great deal of interest across the TAAA in these things. They're, you know, some of them have been around for a few years, but they really seem to have reached critical mass in terms of market appeal of late. So that's what we're going to talk about. Not we. Let me introduce our speakers first. Teresa Bippert-Plymate and Rick Hill and Matt Penn, each of whom has particular
Disembodied.
experience. Sorry. Each of the three has particular experience with one of the leading brands of smart telescopes. So this is not going
You
to
said
be
disembodied voice of Rick Hill.
a disembodied voice of Rick Hill because his camera is suffering from some lag. So our goal tonight is not to just have these three talk at everybody for an hour, but to give brief presentations and then open for discussion and questions and sharing of ideas. And we hope we can have a terrific and informative conversation. So with that, I will turn it over to Teresa and Matt and Rick. Take it away.
Yeah, so thanks for the invite, Jeff, and realized when you asked me to talk about smart telescopes, I wasn't smart enough to do it, so I invited Rick and Teresa to help out. Thank you for volunteering, sort of. Um, I just wanted to say on this cover slide that these things are so new. They've only been around for a decade. And so I've listed the manufacturers and their start dates, basically, when they introduced their first telescopes.
Matt, I'm going to
So
interrupt just to ask, can everybody see Matt's slide?
No,
Yes.
All right. Matt, why don't you unshare and
I
reshare
cannot
your
see any
screen?
slides of it.
yeah, okay, let me stop and
Or
then I'll
Rick,
redo
do you have
that.
another tab, a second tab with the slide on it, maybe? David, others, Randy, can you, because I do see the slide.
Yes, it's fine.
Oh,
Okay, well,
okay.
so folks are seeing it.
Now I'm starting to see things.
All right. All right, good. Okay, sorry for the interruption.
No problem. So Rick will be the first person to speak, and he's got one of the original models, the EV scope, from Unistellar. Unistellar and Vaonis were two French companies that started this trend. Dwarf Lab jumped in 2023 or late 2022. And then, of course, you guys know that the big manufacturers are now involved. CWO and Celestron have their own smart telescopes out. Um, so yeah, things are progressing really rapidly, and it's only been for 10 years that we've had these things available to us. So there are a lot of new ideas floating around, and we'll talk about those tonight. So, Rick, I'm gonna forward uh, and go through your slides. Can you see them?
We'll find out. Go ahead and put one up.
It's up.
Not on my screen. I'm still seeing your intro slide.
Jeff, are you seeing the first one?
I see it.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Um, so I guess what I can do is I can email the slides to you, Rick, or do you have the copy that I sent out this morning? You might be able to run them locally. Rick disappeared. Or did
Can
he?
still
No,
connect
he's
it.
still there. He's still there. Okay.
He's muted. Hang on, we'll get this figured out.
Don't have his number.
I wonder, Matt and Teresa, until Rick comes back, why don't we jump ahead to the next
Yeah, good
set
idea.
of,
So let's jump to the C-Star telescopes and Teresa, please take it away.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to preface this with I'm not a big, huge astro imager. I bought this little guy just because it looked like it'd be a lot of fun, and it is. And as you can see from my picture, the size of it with my cat Kepler there. And so I thought I'd just do a quick overview. They obviously have the S50, S30, and the S30 Pros, and that's the aperture of those telescopes. But unfortunately, the S50 is currently out of stock in the US, in case people didn't know that. You can still get them from China and Europe. The rumor is that they have not discontinued the S50, but the assembly line has been given over to the S30 Pros at the moment. And there is rumors of a possible S50 upgrade because the detectors in them are starting to get a little bit long in the tooth now. The S50 and S30 have triplet apo refractor optical systems, and the S30 Pro is a quadruplet. The both of the S30s also have an additional wide angle lens. The S30 has a 23-degree wide angle lens, and the S30 Pro has a 63-degree wide angle lens. The field of view of the S50 is 1.3 by 0.73 degrees. So of the three, this one is the one that you would choose to use if you're interested in shooting deep sky objects. The field of view of the S30 is 2.5 degrees and the S30 Pro is 4.6 degrees. So obviously you would want to use those if you are wanting to take Milky Way, big Milky Way images or large nebulae. The S50 currently lists for 550, and you can find quite a lot of them used because they've been in the market a long time. Their imager is a 2.13 megapixel imager. The S30 lists for 400 and has a 2 megapixel imager, and the S30 Pro lists for $600. And I have seen very few used ones around $500, and they have a very new 8.4 megapixel sensor on them. All of them, as most of these smart telescopes, are controlled with a phone app, and the phone app is extremely easy to use. I'm not a big phone user. I'm still stuck using the computer for just about everything, but I had no trouble at all connecting and using it. And in the app, there's tutorials, there's a community, you can post your pictures, you can ask questions, you can suggest as well things they need to do, which is good because every time I started up at the dark of the moon, I won't say every time, but often they have some new software or firmware upgrade to go through before you start up again. So it's always good to check that out before you get going. They all use the Sony Starvis CMOS detectors, which are ultra low light, low noise, and they go into the near infrared. And of course, they all have full go-to and tracking. They plate solve to identify the field. They perform live image stacking. There's built-in autofocus, leveling, calibration routines, planetarium programs built in, dew heaters. They have solar, lunar, deep sky, shooting video, and a daytime scenery mode. And they all come in alt azimuth, as the two little pictures in the bottom show. But there are a lot of second source equatorial mount adapters, so you can go equatorial with them. And they all come ready to go. They include the tripod, internal UV/IR cut filters, dark filters, O3 and H alpha filters, and a solar filter. And they all come in a nice little carrying case. You can see Kepler sitting on my carrying case of my C-Star. The one thing that is highly suggested by everyone that owns a Sea Star are one of these little leveling devices in the middle top of the picture. As you need to level it by loosening a leg and moving legs up and down, that's kind of unwieldy as you find out. You get close with the legs and then you use these little rollers to do your final leveling. It makes life way easier, and those things are not very expensive. Next slide. These are my images that I've taken. And like I said, I'm not a big astro imager. I'm old-fashioned. Before I got my Sea Star, the last time I did any astro imaging was with film. And I have a short attention span. So none of these images exceed 70 minutes, and the veil's only 20 minutes. The NGC 2264 and the Cone Nebula on the left there was 70 minutes. Below it, M78 was 19 minutes. The Sun, I don't remember, but it was, of course, very fast. The Veil, 20 minutes. The Rosette, 64 minutes. And M81, 30 minutes. And some of these, I think the Veil there is a raw off the Sea Star. I didn't process it. I also have a very limited attention span for processing. I maybe spend 10 to 20 minutes maximum processing because my attention span is just not that long. The next slide are images from a sea stars that I pulled off the net. There's a really active ZWO Sea Star Facebook group. And some of the images totally blow me away, but a lot of these people are thousands of images that they've stacked and then processed like crazy and all that stuff. And more kudos to them. I'm totally enjoying just taking pretty pictures that make me happy. And I call these things gateway devices because almost every Sea Star I've seen on the used market is people get in, they start taking pictures, they love it, and they say, okay, I'm going to spend the $5,000 now and buy a big giant imaging rig. So that's what I have for you tonight to say. Back to Matt.
Excellent. Rick, I see you're back, so we could go back to your slides for the EV scope. Oops. Here we go. And I think you're muted.
Okay. Yes, things seems to be much more stable now. Yeah, that's the telescope over on the left there, and like I say, I've been getting them on eBay for $1,000 to $1,500, and they are. I wanted more aperture than what the Sea Star offered. I had a couple of friends that had Sea Stars, and they've been doing great work with them, but I wanted to do extragalactic supernovae, and I wanted to do faint comets, and stumbled into some other things as well. Here you can see one of my first images of this galaxy, NGC 3628, and you can see a 19th magnitude star in the galaxy. And that is the kind of magnitude limit I wanted to get to. To give you an idea of that, 19th magnitude was what they got to with 103 AO on the 100-inch or 200-inch Palomar telescope when I was a kid back in the 1950s. So this was a real goal for me. Go ahead for the next slide. Now this shows something that I stumbled into. I am with the Lunar Planetary Observing Organization, ALPO, and I was interested, I got interested in doing Pluto, and I started doing regular nightly images of Pluto and put them together into both animated and stop time, as you see here. And then I said, what about the other ones? And so here we see Haumea and Makemake, two trans-Neptunian planets, and they're very faint, 17th, 18th magnitude. But the Haumea is interesting because Haumea is the egg-shaped one, and so you can actually see it changing brightness from night to night. Next. Here are a couple of supernovae that I did track very successfully and watch them through their whole cycle. And I think they're both very faint now. Certainly, the one in M101 is faded to where you can't see it, even with the scope I've got now. Maybe if you had one of those Celestron scopes. Next.
So we're into Teresa slides. Did you want the let me jump ahead to your backup slide. Got some time. This guy.
Yeah, this is one thing that I did to mine that is a really important. If you're living in the city like I am, go get yourself some poster board and make a dew cap, basically. And when you slip the poster board on the telescope, as you see in the right-hand image, it adds about 8 inches of dew cap to your scope, and that makes a big difference in the light getting in your scope from neighbors' lights or whatever. My neighbor shoots baskets behind me with this Final Four going on. He's shooting hoops every night out there. And so he's got these bright lights on at his place. It has no effect on my scope at all with that extra dew cap. Next.
That's all I've got from you, Rick.
Really? Okay, then you didn't get them all. But okay, there's some of the things you can do with it. I thought you had a comet one, at least one comet one.
Sorry.
There we go. We've had several nice comets, and I've got great detail. Of course, lots of nice satellites I get in my images too. But the beautiful thing about shooting with these CMOS detectors is they pile images on top of images. And so your satellite may be real bright like this in the initial image where it shows up, but if you go on a little while longer, it fades and fades and fades until eventually it's averaged out. Go ahead. If that's it, that's it. And we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. But I've got questions for you as well. So
Okay.
let me jump to my dwarf slides just quickly.
Okay.
As Rick has mentioned, the dwarf is probably the smallest of the telescopes. 30 millimeter aperture. The dwarf 3 gets up to 35 millimeter aperture. So what attracted me to the dwarf was the compactness, the small size. Like Teresa mentioned with the Sea Star, you can do landscape panoramas. And so if you've hiked Phone Line in Sabino, here's the Dwarf 2 perched on that big rock near the start of the trail. I did a panorama of the far canyon wall, and you can count saguaro on the far canyon. It's pretty amazing, the detail. They fit, I've been packing them into little Tupperware containers. So here's the Dwarf 2 packed into a little container. And the Dwarf Mini is obviously the smallest of the bunch. Here we got a Dwarf Mini, a small tripod, and a USB battery set up next to a standard Costco chair for scale. This will run all night. So with the little battery, you can take 8 hours of observations using their scheduler. And it fits in the outer sleeve of my backpack. It's incredibly compact. We took the Dwarf 3 to Argentina, got some pretty fuzzy LMC pictures, which was low on the horizon. So I've taken it all over the world. Driving it out to Timba is trivial. So throwing it in a car and packing it off is really easy. Right now the prices are pretty low. And the Dwarf 2 is technically discontinued, but you can find it used for $200. So I do a lot of processing, unlike Teresa. I think the eclipse image here is the only unprocessed dwarf shot that I have here. What I initially liked about the dwarfs were the solar observations. So here's perhaps 2 minutes of images stacked and wavelet filtered, showing sunspots on the sun. And then a collage of other nighttime objects. I've been doing mosaicing, so processing these images and then stacking or stitching them together with Microsoft. So here's a 1x2 of Sagittarius, a 3x3 mosaic in Auriga, and then 5 panels of Comet A3. So once you download the images, the files out of the dwarf, you can process them to your heart's content, just like any other rig that you might have. And then finally, I wanted to mention some science that can kind of do. Like I said, the dwarfs are limited to 30 millimeter aperture, so you got some constraints with that. And then the timing is a little bit strange. Currently, the dwarf timing runs 6 exposures of whatever exposure level you select. I was running 2-second exposures here. And then for the 7th frame, they do a dithering motion that currently is automatic. You can't change that or turn it off. So this is a little bit limiting. Back in early last year, they didn't have that going. So I took about 2 hours of variable star observations. No averaging. These are all the raw frames. So you can see the noise from the 30 millimeter, the small aperture. I think these were 6-second exposures. I haven't looked at any TNOs, but here's an asteroid, I think a 4-hour time lag. So you can see the asteroid jumping back and forth in the center of the frame. I think this was about magnitude 10. And then earlier this month, Psyche was involved in an occultation. It was blocking a star. And I had done a lot of tests. Unfortunately, it was cloudy the night of the occultation. But the occultation was supposed to last about 12 seconds. And even with this funky exposure sequencing, the Dwarf 3 would have been able to record it at 12th magnitude. So there's interesting possibilities for science. I didn't mention the spectra, sorry. So up here are spectra from the Dwarf 2. That has a little adapter so you can screw in filters in front of the primary. The star is generating these spectra. This is a diffraction grating then, screwed into that filter holder. The stars are off of the field of view to the top, but you can see some spectra, dark absorption lines. There might be an emission line in this star as well. But if you look over here, this is M57. So there are 2 emission lines in the blue from M57 and then H alpha here down in the red. So I don't think you're going to be taking spectra of Rick's extragalactic supernova with this, unless the exposures are really long. But there are some stellar spectra that you can get with the dwarfs and start to do some interesting science in that direction. Okay, so that's all I had. We've come up with a list of references like Teresa mentioned. Facebook user groups are a fantastic source. Cloudy Nights has a whole forum dedicated to smart telescopes with threads for each of these telescopes. I like some of the YouTube reviews from Quiv and from Astro Backyard. And then way back, this is the historic discussion now. Three years ago, I gave a talk when these things were just coming out. You can look at this if you want to and laugh and see how things have exploded since then. But those are the slides that we prepared. We've got some backup slides, but I think now would be a good time to go to questions and let you guys run the rest of the
3 years ago is when I first got into it and bought this one. By the way, I bought my EV scope used on eBay, and when I got it, it was not only not used, it was still in all the original plastic. And so I got it for about $1,000, and it's a $5,000 telescope. I really did a killer deal.
Well done, Rick, and thanks to all of you for this overview. Just to get the discussion going, let me pose this question, and I'd love to hear from each of you. As you got underway, and now I know, Rick, Matt, you've got experience with larger, more complicated rigs. What did you find easy about the Smart Scope? Well, in particular, what did you go, yeah, that's great? And what did you find perhaps a little bit more challenging about it than you expected?
Well, the phone app is really nice and pretty easy. So they've got all the standard things you would want, moving in RA and deck, autofocus, things like this. So with the push of a button, you can do these things. I mean, it's it's a command in SharpCap or Nina. So, but having it all on a phone is nice, and being completely remote from any power is really easy. Is what I found.
Well,
Um,
seeing Bernie's rig is what got me into it at first, and he was using a tablet for capture, and I like the idea of the larger field on that tablet. My eyesight isn't what it used to be, so the bigger the image is, the better off I am, and that's what convinced me to use tablets. But I will say this: when you buy a tablet for it, if you buy one used, make sure you buy a tablet that's the same vintage.
Yeah, I found at first, like I said, just trying to level it properly by moving the legs up and down and tightening it was an issue. And I got online and saw people suggesting that little device. I found the phone app relatively straightforward. There's some stuff on it that I've never used yet because I've been actually doing some astronomical league projects and I'm a sketcher. So I haven't actually had the Sea Star out for a while. Yeah, that thing. But they have a built-in mosaic mode now, and that's one of the things I want to try pretty soon is trying that. One thing that is a little bit annoying, I'd say, about the alt as mode, of course, is the edges of your image, excuse me, are going to be a little bit smeared if you have a long exposure with a lot of stacking. And obviously, if you put it in an equatorial mode, that'll make that go away and do a lot better. Um, but I have seen someone just a couple of days ago posted an image and it went down to almost 17th magnitude. And I was like, oh, holy cow. So, uh, and one of the backup slides I have has a bunch of there's a whole lot of second source stuff now for the Sea Star, like the equatorial thing, and a whole bunch of, you can see there's Batinov masks and filter slides and Duke shields and trays to hold stuff. People are getting very creative. A lot of people are putting like optolong filters on the front of the Sea Star to do super narrow band imaging. So whatever you think of, people are coming up with them because there's so many of them out there now.
One of the
Excuse
thing,
me.
one of the things I found um, is that you can now use Nina to control the Sea Star, and also you have the ability to have someone else remotely control your Sea Star. And so those are two really powerful additions to what they do. As a
Yeah,
matter of fact, I'll be ready to try that experiment with one of you with the S50 up on the roof in its little box. So it's amazing what these little things can do.
David, just in case we have anybody on this call who doesn't know what Nina is, can you share what that is?
Nina is a program that you can use to control all of your equipment. Um, I use another program called CCD-CL. I do spectroscopy, but Nina is probably the closest to that, where you can pretty much run any particular piece of equipment from any manufacturer, as long as a driver is available. And to have it run the S50 or the Sea Stars is a big leap forward, because then you're back on your PC for Teresa, and everything is nice and
we
tidy.
we've been meaning to learn Sea Star, I mean Nina. So that's more of a incentive to learn it because right now we're running our observatory. It's on a Paramount, so we're using the software BISC and SharpCap. And so that's another incentive to learn the sky, to learn Nina.
Well, and the price is right with Nina too, Teresa.
Yeah,
It's free.
yes.
Jeff, I've got some little information if you would like to hear.
Please.
I noticed on Rick's discussion there that he was talking basically about his model and what he's done with it. There are now 4 different models of the Unistellar, and I think you only had 3 of them listed there. But there is now the Odyssey and Odyssey Pro, which is right here. This is the Odyssey Pro, by the way. I have 2 Unistellars, my EV Scope 2, which I've probably had close to 6 years now and just love it. And just recently now picked up the Odyssey Pro. The reason I got the Odyssey Pro is it's actually lighter and easier to walk around with, and it has some other nicer features as well. But I use them both. The advantage of the EV Scope 2 and the Odyssey Pro is that it's the only smart scope with an eyepiece. And that eyepiece is really nice for outreach. Now, I know most of you don't think about outreach. I do. Obviously, I'm the Star Party manager for the club. So I do a lot of outreach. And I tell you, the eyepiece is just a wonderful addition. Now, granted, it's more expensive, but it's well worth it because you just get wow every time somebody walks up and looks through it. Now, granted, it's not an optical eyepiece. I go through that with a lot of people. It's not an optical eyepiece. You're actually looking at a little screen down there. But that screen is nice and bright, easily visible. So you've got your older generations have a hard time struggling with looking through standard eyepieces, especially at faint fuzzies. This gives them the opportunity of seeing what they hope to see when they look through a telescope. So really love this scope. Really,
I can't use an eyepiece at all anymore because I've had so many surgeries on my eyes, on my retinas and everything. So having that nice tablet screen to look at is by far optimal.
Tablets are great, I run a tablet as well. I'll do them both. So typically what I'll do is I'll set a tablet up on an easel, and I'll set that over to the side and tell them this is what you're going to see when you look through the telescope. And
your scope was yours was the inspiration to me, Bernie. So I got to give you all the credit there.
The other thing is you can put filters on Unistellars. A lot of people don't know that, but you reach up under there, you can screw in various filters, and I've seen guys do it. Haven't tried it myself yet. Outreach, don't really need to, but that's a handy something else to do. And another thing I've recently done is I put network extenders, connected a network extender to it so that I can put this out on my driveway, and I can sit in the house with a network extender, and I can go anywhere in my home and be able to communicate with it.
One of the other powerful things using these for outreach is that people with their own tablets can interact with, at least look at what's going on, and one person would have control over it. So they could use their phones or their tablets. The other thing that I found when I use this for outreach is that people constantly ask, where's the telescope? Because they're expecting to see something that doesn't look like this little box. And they're amazed at what the technology can do.
Yeah, you have to put lights around your sea stars so that people don't knock them over.
Well, fortunately, the unistellars stand up about 5 feet. So, and whenever I show anything, I always hold on to the tripod. I'm they're expensive enough that you don't want someone kicking it over. You're absolutely right.
There's another company that makes smart telescopes now, and I can't come up with the name. They're new to the market, and I don't know anything about them. But they produce two models, and they're both 53 millimeter size aperture. I'll have to look it up because I gave a presentation to our club recently, and I was surprised when I found these things, but I can't remember what they were called.
Well,
I'd have to look
Celestron
it up.
makes one.
Huh?
Celestron makes one now.
Yeah, no, it's some other company. It's another Chinese make, of course, but
Yeah, Celestron has the Orion Smart Telescope that they've had for about a year now, and it's basically it's a Raza 6 type design with all the smart stuff built into it, so you can run it from your phone.
These scopes are a real boon for the older astronomer, IR one, that might be limited in their ability to get outside, move equipment around. Um, it keeps you going. It keeps you working. You can actually do science with this, and that's really exciting.
I will say one thing. When I started with the hobby over 3 years ago, I knew zero point zero about astronomy or astrophotography. I knew photography. I didn't know astrophotography. And I got the ASI Air to work with my C8 and my Hyperstar, and I learned how to use it. It is more complex than a regular smart scope, but it has 90% of what a smart telescope does in terms of ease of use. And that's the one thing that when I got the C-Star S50, I was really excited about it. I've used it a lot. Now I'm actually going to be selling it at Star Arizona very shortly because it's great if you take thousands of subs and then you want to stack them in PixInsight, you'll get a good quality image. But even with that, the quality of the images I get with my C8 or with my Hyperstar attached to it or with my SQA 55, you just can't even compare them. They're not comparable. They're close. And I've seen people who've done some really good things with the S50 and the S30s and the S30 Pro, but that's because they've stacked a lot of images and spent a lot of time with PixInsight or Cyril and have done some processing with it. If you don't learn how to process that, it's great for someone who's brand new. If they want to understand what it's all about, it can be a gateway to other telescopes. I think it's great for students who you don't necessarily want to spend thousands of dollars on a student for the first telescope. And it's a great way to get interest. It's a great way to do outreach. But in terms of just the quality of the images, they just don't compare.
Aperture is king, right?
Yeah, aperture and the quality of the lens and the scope, all that stuff.
yeah, we just bought a Player One Poseidon for our C14 for our observatory, and I know that's going to take far superior images, but I also know the learning curve's going to be pretty steep.
Well, these aren't meant to replace the standard stuff, whatever that is. And I mean, they have it their own niche. And but what is funny to me is how when we get well, sailboat races, for example, somebody has a sailboat and they want it to go fast, so they put all these things that make it go faster than a sailboat normally should go. So if you want a fast boat, you don't buy a sailboat, you buy a powerboat. So, and this is sort of the same thing.
Yep.
So it's
Yeah, I think it's really good for solar, especially solar eclipses. I know people that have from our club from that have gone to see this total eclipse a couple years ago, and they brought their sea stars with it. It's great for that. It's great for some basic lunar imaging, but it's not going to do with obviously what a solar telescope will do. But it is again, I think, great for something like an eclipse or a basic lunar photo. I've gotten some really good photos shooting the moon with it.
And they're also good if you're shooting through clouds and you say, "Oh, I've got about a 20-minute sucker hole. It's not worth going out and opening the
Yeah.
observatory." But you can plop your sea star down and say, "Take a picture, quick." And it
Yeah.
works.
What are other people's experiences with support?
Um, I'm curious what you all have experienced with noise, and the reason I'm asking, I have a Celestron origin and a C star, and my biggest complaint about the smart scopes is the cameras are not cooled, and especially in Arizona where over the course of the night you might drop substantially in temperature, and so as a result, you get very, very noisy images, and that's something I think the next generation of smart scopes will figure out a way to cool the cameras. And one thing about the Celestron Origin is they made it to be upgradable, and they've already done a camera upgrade that a user can install to go to I think it's a 678 camera, but it's an uncooled chip, and so you have to, it becomes very hard. You can take wonderful images, but it's really hard to match your dark temperature to your light temperatures, because if you're taking them throughout several hours, the temperature is dropping and so on. And so I'm just curious what y'all's thoughts are on the fact that the smart scopes of current technology are all, I believe they're all uncooled cameras.
Yeah, I think you're right. And yeah, like other people have been saying, these will not replace a nice nighttime imaging rig. With the dwarf, the darks are labeled with the temperatures, and so I can match darks later with the imaging that I do during the night. What I see mostly is a defocus. So they have obviously a temperature dependent focus curve, and there's no way to automate a focus as you would in Nina or SharpCap. So yeah, taking 8 or I went a little crazy and took a 20-hour exposure recently. It's not nearly as good as what you're going to get with a rig that has more control.
What device are you talking about there, Matt?
Dwarf. So with the Dwarf Mini, yeah, I do notice some focus shift.
I
So it's a
also
short
think
focal length. So it's a short focal length. So a little bit of temperature shift is going to mean a lot to the focus.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
another
All right.
issue is I really doubt they're going to be looking at putting Peltier coolers in these things. A lot of the
Money.
No
well,
reason.
a lot of the attraction that people are having are these are small, light, portable, can go off small batteries. Start putting a thermoelectric cooler on there. It's going to need a much larger power supply, larger battery, and that starts to detract from the attraction here.
Yeah, these are fantastic for wine tasting trips. So, we went to Sonoda, and after a day of wine tasting, and we were all playing cards inside, I threw the dwarf outside and took a wide field shot. You can use the wide field camera on the dwarf, 2 panels in Orion, and then 4 panels in at the nebula. So yeah, if you're actually gonna dedicate a night and you want some good high photon images, it's not it, but it's a great vacation telescope, that's for sure.
Yes, absolutely. That's when we were out at Death Valley area, I was busily sketching some of my astronomical league projects, but I had my little sea star sitting on the side taking images, and it was so easy. Just, okay, go to the next one and go back, sketch some more. Okay, go to the next one. But
Uh,
it takes up no space at all, so
One thing that I've used my S54 is if I have my regular rig set up, there might be another object that I want to check out, and I want to see, you know, how long will I be able to track that thing all night? So it's a great way of just doing some scouting and, seeing how it's going to frame up. I'm in a neighborhood here in Del Vale where, we do have some obstructions, mainly my house. If it faces west, the house cuts it off. So unless I want to demolish my house or part of it, which is going to happen, I just want to know how much time do I have. So I attach a small battery to it. It lasts all night into the morning. I just have to get up early to make sure I disconnect it so it doesn't move its way towards the sun and burn out the lens, or the camera. But I've been able to take some pre-shots at least of an object, knowing that if I shoot that next, I'll be able to get a decent night of imaging from it.
Did something similar. I was doing the open clusters, and I couldn't decide which one was my actual target, so I had the Sea Star take a picture of it for me. I said, "Oh, okay, it's that one."
Do have a thought on the noise. The C Star now comes with a denoise option. And so I think that has helped clean up noise a lot in their photos. And I've also used the mosaic tool with the C Star. And I think that's a really nice option to get the entire rosette or some of these other larger objects. It definitely extends how long you're going to be taking photos.
Yeah, I thought that one of the projects I might do is try doing one of the Astronomical League imaging projects and see if I can do it with the Sea Star. That might be a lot of fun.
The Dwarf Mini, in the app, you have the ability to upload your image and select a variety of fixes. And if you just select auto, it'll process the image for you and then send it back, and it does a pretty good job.
So, Rick, you're asking about response time for problems from companies. How have you found Unistellar for issues that you've run into?
You're dealing with people in France with Unistellar, so everything's over email. There's no choice. And well, unless you like large phone bills or something, but their response time 24 to 48 hours, and they are very attentive to the problem, understand it. They also have a large online troubleshooting library. So you can put in your problem and you can filter through their ideas on their AI ideas on what it might be. And about half the time you find a solution in what they have online. But otherwise, they'll nail it. And I had a particular problem where I couldn't get any good calibration images with it for a while. And it turned out I had filled up the onboard library, and there was no way to clean it out. When we finally discussed what the problem was and how to get around it, they had to send me a little SIM card, and I had to swap it out for one that was on the electronics inside. And once that happened, everything was fine. That's the biggest problem I've had with it. I don't have hardly, because of the longer focal length, which is what I was asking about. Because of the longer focal length, I don't have the cool down problem, the defocusing. And I find that diffraction spikes are perfectly fine with this telescope for focusing. I don't need a Batten-off mask or anything.
Rick, what is the focal length of your scope?
It's I can't remember exactly. I think it's like 700 millimeters.
And the ratio?
So it's just, it's just shy of, wow, I can't remember. But it's a 4-inch aperture, and it's just shy of a full meter.
F7.
Yeah, and I like that longer focal ratio. With the downside, you all are taking pictures of the Rosette Nebula. I can only get the few stars in the center. So I don't have the field of view you do. I can't do both M81 and M82 together. I have to do a montage to get that. Even the Orion Nebula, I did like 6 images to do just the Orion Nebula. but it's a beautiful picture.
And Teresa and Matt, the F ratios for your scopes?
The mini is f5, so it's 150 millimeter.
All of the C stars are F7s.
So Teresa, I was going to ask you, should I get one of the C stars out now or wait till the S50 Pro comes out?
I would wait and find out what they're going to do. There's also the online community is screaming for an S70, so we'll see if that
Wow.
happens. But yeah, I'd like to see what imager they're going to put in and if they actually do come out with an S70 because they've been really responsive to the community saying we need this, we need this, we need this, and they've added it into the software and firmware. And now everyone is saying we want an S70, so I'll be keeping my eyes peeled for that one.
It's a rapidly evolving field right now, these scopes.
Yep.
Teresa, you going to hold out for the Smart C14?
I doubt I'll be able to afford that.
Might be a little less portable than your current scope.
Yeah,
Her telescope operator is less expensive.
that's right.
Sorry, Claude.
Well, that's how I met Dolores. I sold her a telescope when she was 16, and I've been her telescope administrator ever since.
But then again, if you look at the fact if you have a go-to mount with a large aperture scope and a decent imager on the back, the modern software, Nina, SharpCap, that sort of thing, is essentially converging with what the smart scopes are doing. So I would say, in a sense, yes, there will be, and that's coming very quickly, I think.
I'll mention in passing, I noticed a new Nina plugin that they call Nina AI. It connects you to your choice of several AI engines, and you just say to Nina, I want to image this, and it will set everything up for you.
It doesn't just
So it claims.
it doesn't just create the image.
Pretty soon we'll be able to keep imaging even after we're gone.
Ooh, yeah.
Great.
Others who haven't spoken up yet, questions, what's on your mind? What do you want to know?
I have a question for everybody. This is Greg. What's the longest exposure each one of these can do?
I've gone to 90 minutes with my EV scope.
Does it guide?
Oh, yeah. You do get rotation, so your diffraction spikes will not be the sharp spikes anymore. They'll be little fans. But yes, it will guide just fine. Oh, with that one you saw, that 19th magnitude, that was a 90-minute exposure, I believe.
So Greg, you're asking for a single frame, though, is that right?
Yeah.
10 seconds.
Yeah. So for single frame for the dwarf, I've gone up to 90 seconds, and then, like I said, I summed frames for 20 hours in one target. With the Dwarf 2 and the Dwarf 3, they're not as stable as the Dwarf Mini, so I think I've stopped at 45-second exposures.
For single frame, you don't have that option with the Unistellar. They're 4-second images, and the software decides whether it's going to keep every image or throw it out and wait for the next one, and then they stack them.
So you're not really guiding, you're just stacking the 4-second images.
Right.
Yeah, the C Star comes pre-programmed to do 10-second exposures, and you can go in and set it. I've never tried, have I tried longer exposures? I might have tried longer exposures once, but I found that the 10-second and stacking worked really well, so I just left it at that.
Yeah, if you set it up in EQ mode, which means you have to have the pan tilt, any sort of a pan tilt mount, so you can do the polar alignment, then you can get longer exposures. You can get 20 seconds, 30 seconds. I know people have said they've gotten 60 seconds. 30 seconds seems to be the sweet spot for it though, and then you could shoot a little bit longer in EQ mode.
With my Celestron Origin, I regularly do 2 minutes for most targets, and sometimes I've done 5 minute. But there is an auto guider, a separate auto guider on top of the OTA, so it's a little more little fancier setup, I guess.
We got time for one or two more questions or comments.
If anybody's interested in a used S50, it'll be at Star Arizona within the next week. So
One of the things I've done with my sea stars, I've started taking moonrise photos, and you have to use landscape mode to do that. But if you know where the moon's about to come up over a mountain, uh, and you're set up and close to the azimuth where it will come up, you can get some pretty spectacular pictures as it comes up.
Can't do that with the unistellar because your field of view is almost exactly half a degree.
Got to be spot on. All right. Well, listen, thank you, Teresa, Matt, Rick. Excellent, interesting, engaging presentation and discussion. Thanks to everybody who chimed in. Hope folks found this helpful. I'm at the other end of the spectrum and I'm going, well, this is actually pretty cool.
They're fun. They're fun.
So with that, we'll bring this session to an end and wish you all clear skies and a good evening.
Great.
good night, everybody.
Good night.